Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinola. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome into the studio. It's good to have you here today. Travis Ivanoff with Ivanoff Advisors. And of course, go ahead.
Nick Bernatowicz.
Who are you with?
You know, just some guy joining the crew. Good old OIP.
That's right. It's good to have you in studio today. Thanks for coming out and visiting with us.
Long overdue to have Travis in.
Been a long time. I think you've been asking me for a few years, and now we're out here. The weather's nice, so that's
long
good.
Overdue.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for coming in and joining us. Tell us a little bit about your story. We talked a little bit earlier about some of the things that we would discuss and double click on, unpack a little bit more. But let's start with your story. How did you find this incredible business that you now are neck deep in?
Well, I think it's.
I don't know that it was your plan.
No, definitely wasn't. I have a background in marketing, and I grew up in the business. My dad's been in it for 40 years, and I always thought, I don't want to do what he does. I don't know if I can do that. And then, you know, getting kicked around different jobs, and then working in the marketing space as a digital media buyer planner, and then on different projects like that, I realized I was just kind of running numbers for advertising, which was never my plan. I wanted to like write the jingles and be a copywriter, but that really wasn't happening. So I've been licensed since I was like 18, grew up watching my dad do it all. So I think when I was about 27, I left the marketing space, and he's like, hey, come with me, let's figure this out. So since 27, so what is that, like 12, 13 years ago at this point, I've been fully committed to just advisory business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
when you got into the business, the practice was significant. I'm going to say it was much different in how, maybe not necessarily how it marketed, but the products and services that it represented and the approach that it took with clients. And you've certainly been a part of that evolution, albeit I think also the environment over the last decade plus has also not forced that shape or evolution, but in helping you guys define who your ideal client profile was. It was almost like this was the natural progression. But can you elaborate a little bit more on what it was and what it now looks like today and how it's evolved?
Yeah, I think going back to when my dad started, or when I started to join, it was very much house to house insurance, you know, IUL, or annuities here and there, but very much transactional. And I knew getting into it, I wanted to build an actual financial planning company and take it to the next level. And I didn't know what that looked like at that time, but I just knew I didn't want to go house to house and meet a client and then, you know, talk to them very rarely because they didn't really need us that much more than, you know, a couple times a year, if that. So when I started with him, we quickly decided to get an office space, no more driving house to house. And then as that progressed, we really went from, I think Paul was buying leads. I mean, he beats to his own drum. So back in the day, he started a whole nursing side of business, and it was like the California nurses benefits. And he would mail to nurses, you know, nurse after nurse, and just get in there, sell term insurance or maybe some IUL or UL. And that was really the world. And he at one point had a huge agency in Beverly Hills. I don't know if you guys know that about him, but he had a bunch of agents under him, got sick of babysitting. He's like, I don't want to do this. This is too much work. As far as like, I know what I'm capable of, but now I'm trying to babysit other people to get them up and running. So he decided not to do that any longer, and then really just ran a one-man shop. My mom, labor delivery nurse, but came on, and she was his admin, which was always fun watching them bicker back and forth, and growing up knowing I didn't want to do that.
The joys of a family-owned and operated practice.
Yeah, there's nothing is too much to say in that world. So
moving on from that.
Moving on from that. So watching that, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, we had just started seminars at that time. That's when he asked me to come over. I remember his first seminar. He was nervous but excited. We had another speaker come in to do it. And the first one was a bomb. Nothing.
Right.
Like, he's like, man, I just laid out this mailer money and venue, and it was back in the day when you didn't have to serve them lobster and steak. It was very chips and salsa and
Right.
something like that.
And
then,
the rooms would fill.
yeah, they would.
Yeah.
And it was Social Security seminars, which everyone wanted to know about. And I remember the first one, he's like, man, I don't know if I can do this again. And then to my mom's credit, she pushed him like, come on, we know it can work. Everyone else does it. Why can't we? So he kept pushing. And then to this day, he's like, I've never had a seminar that hasn't worked out. That one worked out a year later. Finally, a client came on, moved some money with him. And then from there, now we do seminars, 12 to 18 seminars a year, and we've never really left that space.
And they've always been in Southern California?
Yep.
Always?
Yep, Southern California. I mean, it went from a little, country club, chips, salsa, brownies, cookies, filling the room with 80 people a night and not even knowing what to do with all the leads, to now it's, as you guys know, that's been saturated quite a bit, but
Right.
still, as far as getting people in the room, there's nothing like a seminar. So we still do them. Now we've seen the price, go up tenfold on those things. Now we literally have to do steak, lobster, things like that. But it's always been our bread and butter, and we know that we can bring people in, educate them, and help them with retirement. And thankfully, we've brought like Medicare planning, estate planning, accounting, tax planning, everything in house. So now we have a lot more spokes on the wheel as far as things that we can offer. And we've seen that really help our business, but we're still in that seminar space. We get quite a bit of referrals, and then Sadie took over the Medicare business, which is huge. We're in newspapers. We do all that kind of thing. So it's been helping. It's continued to grow. And we went from, insurance annuity only to back in 2017, we started the security side. Even though Paul was securities way back in the day, we started that back up, and that's been a huge help. Just being able to do the whole holistic approach, right, that we all learn about through APEG and other companies, just making sure you can handle every aspect so you're not a, one-stop shop of just annuities. You're able to build all the planning around there, and that's really what my focus has been.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so you came in 2011-ish?
Yep.
2011-ish, and basically continued that model of seminars, perfected it, grew it, expanded the offerings within it and how that model ran. And then essentially in 17, you started to expand the practice on what you offered through the practice, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I want to unpack a few things. So I think this is very important for those that so as an example, we get the question pretty regularly for those advisors who are aware of seminars. I don't know that any advisor is not aware of them, but there's still many who never have done much of them, if any at all, outside of private client events, right? Like existing client events, whether that be an appreciation event or a guest speaker that comes in, or they speak on a given talk event. So there's always this question, do those still actually work? And just hold on to that thought, because a couple things that we always share with our advisors is, from the beginning, a lot of advisors, I think, have this false expectation that I'm going to deploy whatever marketing strategy that I select to get the audience in the room, and the Rolodex and the calendar is going to become filled. And if it doesn't, or when it doesn't, they don't work. I'm not going to do it again. But in your extensive tenure of doing seminars, I imagine there's been markets of ebb and flow. You've had to shift different topics, different strategies, different marketing platforms. But in every instance, figuring out how to pivot to continue to still make it work. And not that we're asking you to share the secret sauce.
Sure.
But I go back to that because you said the very first one that your dad did way back when was like, this is going to be the future of our practice. You did one, it bombed. Easily, what percentage of advisors would say, it didn't work. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to continue to pour, quote, good money after bad for something that isn't going to work. And it's just false thinking.
Yeah, I think anything in life we learn is consistency is key. In your first one, you're not going to hit it out of the park, right? You're learning how to do all of the little things, all the little tricks that no one talks about. For example, I remember our first ones, we didn't have table numbers. So people would turn in their sheet and then they turn them back in. And here I am yelling across the room, hey, is John Smith over here? And that was embarrassing. I was like, man, that's the worst part of the seminar, is just trying to find who the people are. And then finally I'm like, hey, we need to put table numbers and then put the number at the top so we can go, okay, we know they're at table 5. So now I can kind of corner in on that. So you start learning all the little tips.
Well, your delivery sucks. I mean, let's be honest. Like, the first time I do a presentation, I'm not all of a sudden, an Oscar-winning, stage presence. That's false expectation, right?
Yep.
I got to be put in that environment. I got to work through those fears and the concerns and get to the good side of delivery.
It's a learned skill. Public speaking in general is a learned skill, let alone a specific presentation topic that you got to be knowledgeable on, right? So that takes time. That takes effort, repetition, just like anything.
And that would probably seem the most obvious, right? Okay, I got to speak. But those little details around it, when not to do a seminar, don't run a seminar in June and July. Everyone's going to see the grandkids or they're on their summer break. It's not going to go as well as it could. Maybe you'll have some one-offs that work out, but that was trial and error. I looked at our numbers. I'm like, all right, no more June and July. Let's do client events during those months because seminars don't pull. It's a waste of our money at this point.
Right.
When you come to December, don't do December, right? We found that November's, if you do it early enough in November, that tends to work well. But the presentation is, I think, what everyone might be nervous of, but it's learning all the tricks in between, when not to do seminars, how to set up the room. Don't allow them to drink. I can tell you stories about that. Don't want to do that. Really also being selective of who you bring on. I think a common theme is the mail house is measuring their success based off people in the room. That's not how we measure our success. We want quality over quantity.
Right.
And you can get into that all day with the mail houses, but it's, hey, I know you got 80 people, but I have a lot of people I really don't want in the room. They're, it's a woman's night out. It's their date night. I'm paying for, 4 ladies to come out and hang out with no intention to even pay attention at the seminar.
Right.
So you start learning the tricks in between to make sure you're more likely to have a successful seminar. And if you don't do that, that's when you're going to get discouraged. But as you get better and you kind of realize what works and what doesn't, I mean, even with that being said, all the mistakes we made, we never stopped doing them because they've always benefited us. I mean, it's the best way for us to get people captive, 30 to 40 in the seat. And as we know, in this business, you don't have to bring the whole room on, nor do you want to. There's people you don't want to work with in there. But if you get a couple from each seminar, and we're always running back-to-back nights, I mean, it's going to be a successful seminar, and you're going to get better, and you're going to learn, and you just got to be consistent with it. I think that's always what we've done. And there's times when I didn't want to do them, and Paul, my dad, did. I'm like, I don't know, that one was terrible. He's like, nope. He's like, we got to keep pushing. And then the next one was great, right? So as long as you're doing it, and then, relying on a company like yourself where, using drip campaigns. So maybe it just wasn't the right time. So you got to stay in front of them. You're using all those mailers. You might as well drip on them with long-term care or whatever the case may be, and something's going to catch them. Not everyone, but that lead you paid for isn't dead. You just got to put in a little work on it, and something will come.
Them.
Yeah, correct. Keep
nurturing. I mean,
them.
you made the point early on where you said the Dad's first seminar. Ultimately, even from that seminar, the practice gained a client. It just took a year.
Yep.
So just continue to nurture the people. Let me ask you a question. Do you think advisors can do this on a part-time basis, or if they enter into the seminar business, you've got to make it integral as a consistent, repeatable part of your practice?
Yeah, there's no part-time in seminars. You have to really, at least until you have it up and running successfully, and it's like clockwork, you got to put in the time and you can't give up.
You got to be all in.
Yep, definitely.
And you got to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, that's the thing too. I think you think any business, right? Like there's so many businesses where the first question is, what's my setup cost? What's the barrier to entry? If I just use some very, very general example of if I'm going to open a yogurt shop, well, I don't all of a sudden open the yogurt shop, put all that time, effort, energy into building that, putting my sign outside, open the doors, and if the first month business sucks, I don't just close the shop. No, I got to figure out how to pivot. What adjustments do I need to make? And I think in the advisor space, I think a lot of the times our choices are just too flippant in the sense that I can dabble with this, and if it doesn't have immediate success, then I go on to the next thing, as opposed to really, really making a specific and being committed to what is my marketing strategy for my practice going to be, and we're going to make it work.
Mm-hmm. And being open-minded, right? I think a lot of advisors get stuck in their own way, and it's like, well, if I can't figure it out, no one can. But something I've done my entire career, and I think Nick can vouch for this as well, is I'm a sponge. I will learn anything from anyone I can. I don't care what your background was. I don't care how long you've been in the business. If I can get a nugget off you and it'll make my seminar better or my presentations better, I just keep an open mind. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
Still to this day, we do seminars all the time, and now it's too lengthy. I mean, Paul and I started to think we're in some kind of huge performance where we got an hour and a half seminar and people are falling asleep. I've seen it. I have pictures of it. I'm all right. We got to cut this down.
Yeah.
We don't need to do all this. We feel like the longer the seminar is, the better. But really, you're putting them to sleep. So if you can cut it down in like 45 minutes, I know people that do them in 30 minutes.
Right.
And it took us a while to do that. And my dad's finicky about those things. He likes to really put a lot of content in there. I'm like, we had them in the first 25 minutes. Now we're just losing them.
Right.
Now they're tired. They want to go home. They want to eat.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They want to get out of here.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot there. I think also once you get over the hump of, okay, now I'm loving this.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to keep going. I get ramped up and we're firing on all cylinders. You got to be disciplined. I think that's a very good best practice and takeaway is know what the presentation should be. Stay within the guardrails. Don't start to then go off the cuff where you're going to lose people because now you have diminishing returns, I would think.
Well,
it's like you had me.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
convinced. You did a great job. Now you might have said something or rambled on, or who knows what set the person off.
Oh, I can talk all day, so I've been guilty of that. So now I have to I'll have my team in the back giving me, hey, wrap it. You're going too long, right? So that's another. We have our admin in the back kind of watching it. They know this seminar, and they know if I'm going too long, they'll kind of give me the wrap-up signal, which is tricky when you're first learning how to present and you have someone in the back holding up a 5-minute sign or whatever. That'll throw you off. So even that takes practice. And then I will say the seminar is just half the battle. Then you have to be persistent on how you book the appointments, the follow-up process. Are you calling and checking in on them? Do you have text message and emails going to them to, hey, thank you for coming to this seminar? Reminding them when their first appointment is, making sure your team's calling and they're going to show up, right? Because people that, I heard from someone before, within 24 hours, you forget the first 70%. I think it's 48 or 90 hours by that time. They're gone. They don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So you better have a good follow-up and stick to that. It's not, hey, I got all these appointments, we're good. No, now you got to really nurture those as well to make sure they're going to show up, because that's the biggest fall off. If you can get, the seminar attendees to the first appointment, your odds go up tremendously, because now you get to show them, what you do and what your company really is. The seminar is just a 45-minute long business card. Right, and they're intrigued, but now I got to stay on them and make sure they don't lose that curiosity. So I think that's the other part that you need to do. But once you get to that first appointment, depending on your process, I feel like you don't have as much fall off from the first to second, definitely not the second to third. So it's just that little gap, you got to stay on them.
And I would argue that's probably where most advisors that say seminars don't work, or I've heard they're falling off, is the fact that their process post-seminar is lacking in some capacity. Their drip effort, their follow-ups, their reoccurring meetings, that's where the lead dies. They got them in the seat. They probably had a good presentation. They captured them, and they lose that lead over time because their process isn't in place.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's most of the fall off you see.
Yeah.
Well, in summing that up, you said it well. What the presentation allows you to do essentially is just deliver a 45-minute business card. Then the work begins. So what do you do? Are you willing to share any of the kind of tips and tricks or best practices of what you can try or attempt to capture at the workshop before we move on to the next topic?
Sure. I think this one is a big one that we use, and I had a business coach help me on this, but whenever you're ending the seminar, you've covered a variety of topics. So it's important to put a pin at the end. And what I do is I'll ask a couple follow-up questions. Hey, how many of you are concerned about volatility? Put a 1 or a 5. So I'm literally doing a questionnaire at the end. And then, we talk long-term care. How many of you are concerned about long-term care? I mean, long-term care is a big part of our seminars. And I don't know a lot of people do that. And I'm sure we can talk about that as far as how we get people into the long-term care seminar. We do as well. But we'll do a couple, maybe 5 questions: volatility, inflation, taxes, take their temperature on that. And everyone's going to, so you have to go 1 through 5, 5 being I'm very concerned, right? And at the end of that, I try not to have it come off as a bait and switch, but I just go, look, if you put a 3 or above on any of these things, you should take us up on a no obligation appointment, sit down with us, and let's discuss some of these fears you have and see if we can't help you through it. So, I kind of joke, we keep our seminar loose and fun. But I'm like, look, if your hand was up, I'm hoping to see that you made an appointment, right? Paul and I aren't high pressure. We've been doing this long enough. We don't need to work with all of you, nor will we. And you don't want, we might not be a great fit. It goes both ways. But if you raise your hand for any of these questions for a 3 and above, make an appointment and let's sit down. So that's something that we put a pin in at the very end of the seminar, and that's what I do. And I just wrap it up, and then I'll use the old, when it comes to your health and your wealth, it's important to get a second opinion, right? So I go through the questions, I end it like that. I tell a story about how I had some health issues that, I got a second opinion on, it helped me out, and you should do it with your wealth as well. So that's kind of how we
I like
end
the
it.
second opinion one as well, because that highlights, you already have an advisor. I get it. Let's assume that. Second opinion never hurts.
Correct. Yeah, and I assume everyone has an advisor in there. I hope you do. That means you've done well. You're probably working with an advisor, but there's a reason you're here tonight. Unless you just wanted a steak dinner, but I'm sure most of you can afford a steak dinner on your own. So there's something that brought you here. You might as well make the next step. And if you can't figure out when to come in, well, you're here today on a Tuesday or a Thursday at 6 o'clock. That's when you should make your appointment, because you're here right now. So hopefully you can make that appointment, right? And
that's great.
Kind of joke around about that a bit.
Yeah, but that's great insights. And that's again, I think it's the sum of the parts of all the little pieces that come together, and many of what you just touched on. And that's what makes the difference in getting results from doing seminars versus not.
Yep.
And I want to disclaim by saying that doesn't mean seminars are the end all be all. That's not the point of this conversation. You just happen to have had a significant tenure in doing seminars. It's been a tremendous success in how you've built your practice. So we thought, well, nothing better than to dive in to that conversation and learn from what you've done and continue to do to have success for your firm. Almost all mediums of marketing strategies, I say, work. How they're being approached, and is it a good fit for that firm or that advisor?
Yeah, and demographic, right? Like, I know people that do great on radio, but we're in Southern California. Radio is a little different ballgame out there. The overreach and how expensive seminars just make more sense. We can really target our audience. And I get this question constantly: do seminars work? And again, to put a pin in that, I would say we built our entire practice off seminars. They definitely work.
And still to this day.
Yeah, we're always going to do them.
They've changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't have to do as many because we've gotten to that point, but we know that if we need to get some people in the door, I can run a seminar, take me a month or so to prepare it, and we're going to fill that room one way or the other. And one other thing I would say is, use your clients to help fill the seminars, because attendance has dropped off. So you want your clients to be able to bring their friends, right, and learn. And instead of just meeting me cold turkey and having a referral, come to my seminar. Come enjoy dinner, see the business card, see the 45-minute business card. That'll be easier for me than to sit here and start from scratch. You can really get us to know what we do during the seminar. So I think that it's important to have clients bringing friends, and then even clients in the room, because they want to hear it again, and then maybe they'll get excited about what you're doing and whatnot.
Yeah, to transition, I would say I just want to commend you also and your father for building the practice that is multifaceted. So you touched on it very quickly. It's not just investments. It's not just annuities. It's multiple forms of insurance. You said also tax planning and anything else?
Yeah, tax planning, Medicare planning, estate planning, enhanced estate planning. What else we got? Paul just started doing cremation, so he kind of.
Well, what I would say to that is, two things that might take away the little bit that I have had experience with your father. Number one, he works really hard. He's a hard worker, has been for many years. That's what's been a part of his success. He's also not afraid to try things that he recognizes as a way to market the practice and generate positive activity.
He loves marketing.
Yeah. Well, and it's already working. We're starting to do those at our office, just like the long-term care seminars at our office. And, we're starting with just current clients, but they're like, this is great. This is kind of the end of the retirement planning, like the very end, right?
Yeah.
Some people need that.
That is the end.
Yeah, so
the only steel man I would have in any practice is saying, just be thoughtful and careful about how many different products and services and business verticals you go in, because at the end of the day, what I would suggest is, if we're going to bring on anything, we want to deliver an A grade in that vertical. We don't want to be doing B minus, C plus, and all of these things and saturate who we are as a company. And that's the delicate balance.
I agree.
But you've done a really good job over the decades as a company in implementing certain business verticals. The point is to transition then to long-term care planning, which is one of them, is being multifaceted from an insurance as well as a holistic wealth management firm. And that takes time. It also takes implementation, execution. So kudos to you. But if we could transition to long-term care planning, which is more than just a product, we continue to profess that, definitely, Nick, in educating advisors and their clients all across the country in giving long-term care planning the respect and attention that it deserves. You and Ivanoff Advisors have done a really good job of that, piggybacking, which I think is a great strategy, and then I'll shut up, of kind of teeing up the topic and concern of long-term care planning at your general seminars, and then really funneling into a more elaborate plan. So I'll let the two of you kind of hash this one out, but share a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, you already touched on it. That was one of the strategies.
Did I steal your thunder?
Yeah, a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's
that's
okay. What year would have that been that we initially, 2016, I think, probably somewhere around 2016, we started working with Travis, focusing on how can we generate what we used to market 6 figures of revenue without adding any additional expense to your practice. That was what our initiative was. And it was in regards to adding long-term care to your practice. And so, as Travis already said, his number one things, he's a student. He'll learn anything, he'll take anything. And he dove in head first for 6 months, maybe. Every day we were talking about long-term care, it seemed like, as he was trying to gain expertise and how we can incorporate it into your practice, right? That's essentially what we did, what we started with. And one of the major things you started doing was talking about it at your normal seminar.
Can we pause there? Can I interject something real quick?
Interject away.
Okay, don't forget your thoughts. So at that point in time, you think about it this way, like, okay, we're actively doing seminars. We're not going to stop doing that. We're doing a significant revenue with annuities and other insurance products. We're not going to deploy more capital. Because we're already kind of at our marketing budget for seminars. Sure. How many existing clients do we have in our Rolodex over the last however many years? What was the number then, would you guess?
Back then, probably a couple thousand.
So it's like, okay, how do I kind of go back to these clients who, let's have a bunch of annuities, maybe they could use more annuities, maybe not.
Yeah.
But are there other opportunities that we should execute as a firm to dive deeper with this kind of holistic approach? That's my
Yeah, you hit it spot on. And that's exactly what we had discussed and what got Travis bought into the concept. And
You guys were like, yeah, we're interested. Tell me more.
Well, you know what? We were a little hesitant, I think.
Yeah.
I remember we're like, oh man, now we're going to learn long-term care. And we were just like our clients. Isn't that a use it or lose it, right? Aren't you going to pay all this money if you never have it, then you never get to use it or have that asset? And once Nick, you started educating me on the asset base, and I think the saying, live, quit, or die, right? If you live and need it, it's there. If you quit, there's a cash value, and if you pass away, there's a death benefit. And that's not for every, long-term care carrier, obviously, but it started to teach us what we didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And then the biggest thing was just talking about it. That was the first step. And as soon as I started talking about it, the traction started to begin. I was like,
With
wow.
clients?
Yeah, clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, email drips, things like that. Or, it was just a new tool that I had to help people offset the rising need for long-term care, right? It's something that is a huge need, right? Alzheimer's, dementia, everything is on the rise. What is Alzheimer's, like number 6, right? Something like
sixth
that.
leading cause of death.
So once we understood the tool, then we could talk about it more confidently, and people wanted to learn about it. It's just no, I'm just an annuity guy, or I'm just a securities guy, or I'm just a life insurance. You can't just be anything. You have to, dive into everything and figure out, if you're truly a fiduciary, how can I help this client? How can I help their family offset long-term care costs? Because as we know, it's staggering. So once Nick started to really get us dialed in, all of a sudden now everyone's hearing about long-term care. And then we took it a step further where Nick did our first long-term care seminars, and we were trying to, I believe, before we came up with putting an insert into the mailer, before we started doing that, it was just email blasts and having people check it off. But then, I don't know, it might have been you guys or Paul, I don't really know, but at a certain point, it's like, hey, why don't we just put an insert? We're sending 10 to 12,000 pieces. And then what we'll do is we'll have a long-term care seminar about 3 weeks after our major seminar. That way we have enough time to go into first appointments, and then they'll have enough curiosity to jump into the long-term care seminar. And that's what really made our long-term care, I guess, journey more successful. And now we're helping client after client. It's in my second appointment, I'm always talking long-term care. I'm all, hey, you've done great on income and you got the growth, and we're talking legacy, but we always say the dark horse in your portfolio is long-term care. What have you done? Well, I can self-fund. Yeah, but you didn't get to where you're at by self-funding. You use leverage. That's all it is. We're just leveraging your dollars, and if you don't need it, it's going to someone else. So I think as we got more comfortable putting those inserts into the mailer, and just, you're already sending the pieces out, we have a big space in our office. Why not just teach long-term care on a Saturday here? And if 5 people show up, if 10 people show up, it's great. Now they're more interested, and they really want to learn about long-term care. And some people only want to talk to us about long-term care, which is fine. If that's your pain point and that's where you need help, let us help you.
Right. Yeah, it's a great way to get. It's a way, not a great way. A way to also attract the attention of prospects that are coming to your seminars or people that are introduced to your firm. Because are you still seeing today, by and large, advisors are not having in-depth conversations in your community and in your client base?
Yeah, and if they do, they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They don't know how to build the plans out. They don't understand how it really works. And I think Nick and I have had to redesign a couple plans that someone else did. Same company, same product, just not set up correctly.
Yeah. They didn't do the proper fact finding. They probably don't have the knowledge or wherewithal of how the product is best suited or designed.
No inflation on this one, right? And now it's, there's only so many products, but there's a product, we had this conversation earlier. There's multiple products, but it's just figuring out what is the purpose and what is the right fit. And by being independent, working with you guys, we have every option. It's just digging down the details of what you actually need.
And I think it very much so should be less about the particular product when it comes to planning and more about what is the plan and what is the most efficient way, given your financial picture of how we fund the solution. Source of funds, funding years, duration, and of course, underwriting. I mean, those are the elements, right?
Big time. Like too many times it's square peg, round hole for advisors, right? They use a hammer and only a hammer for every single job rather than doing proper planning, especially with long-term care, because frankly, it's very few people's expertise, right? It's a part of their tool belt, and many put it on the furthest back burner possible for our advisors that we find. And they don't incorporate it in your practice like you have. And so what we find is they don't want to learn. They don't want to be a student of the underwriting, of the variations in the product. They don't care. So they use one product. They use the exact same design every single time because it's the easy street, right? And that's where we as a firm have taken a hard stance of you have to do some education. You have to do some questioning and planning surround it. And that's what has really helped you guys in your practice is being that student. You became a long-term care expert within your practice to allow for that proper planning.
Yeah, and I think people are just afraid to, because they don't have the education, they're afraid to have the conversation, right? And then it just gets fallen to the wayside because they don't know what they're talking about. But it's not that difficult, right? I mean, if you spend, I spent 3-6 months with you, and then all of a sudden I felt like I could, till this day, I know what products for what, but I still run it by you and be like, hey, what do you think? We got some younger clients here. Or I think one of the biggest takeaways is I would get into the long-term care and have the whole conversation. And then I did the underwriting at the end. I'm like, well, I should have started with that because there's no way this is going to work. But I know what will, right? I know the easier products to get into that'll still leverage your dollars. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to turn $1 into 3 or 5. And there's different ways to do that. But having that pre-underwriting conversation is something I didn't learn right away. And you kept telling me to do it. And then I wasted enough time where I was like, I better do that. Yeah.
See, I would, they're most clients that are coming in either have a concern, have experienced long-term care to some capacity with their family, right? Their parents, whatever it might be. And so they want to talk about it, right? I would imagine there's very few clients that are like, just sweep it under the rug. They have some inquisitive, thoughts regarding long-term care, right?
Yeah, I think more the female, I think that demographic has a better understanding because they tend to outlive us, right? So,
well, I think the word is they're more empathetic.
Yeah.
Because they know that I'm the caregiver. I'm the one who's more than likely going to be taking care of fill in the blank.
Yep.
That's just the reality. And so I don't want that upon myself or my loved ones. And not that they're smarter, but they probably are smarter than us as the counterparts of like, I just don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I think the best thing I heard one of my clients say, he was like, look, I want my wife to stay my wife. I don't want her to be my caregiver. I don't want her to have to deal with that. We all know the statistics, how much time it takes off someone's life. What is it, like 7 years or something like that? So when he said that, I was like, man, that's the best way and shortest way to put it. I just want you to be my wife and my friend. I don't need you to be my caregiver. Yeah. Right? I'm going to make sure I can fund that. So
smart man.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. And then, I mean, this is a crazy story, but we actually had someone that decided to go with long-term care with us. I don't know if you remember this one, but he ended up doing all the underwriting and blood work. And I get a call from your office and like, hey, Travis, there's been a decline, and I know this is a little outside of your scope, but you need to tell your client that he needs to see his primary care physician and a urologist immediately. And his PSA levels were through the roof. And I had that conversation with the client, and turns out he was pretty high up on the stage of prostate cancer. They caught it. He had his prostate removed like 2 months later, and literally long-term care saved his life.
Saved his life.
It was so crazy. Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah. I mean, he's a client to this day. He thanks me all the time. Not that I'm some hero, but it was just crazy to see that happen. Like, he jumped into long-term care, ended up saving his life. So now he's still there for his family. And his wife has long-term care. And he doesn't yet, but maybe one day after the 5 years or whatever it is, he can jump into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that was wild. That, obviously you don't want someone to get declined, but in order to be able to do that and help someone, like, not my intent, obviously I'm not a doctor or anything, but it's like, wow, that was a wild decline in story.
Yeah, we always say it's the number one risk facing retirees. It's not any less than outliving your assets. It's the thing that's going to put gasoline on you spending down your assets faster than anything else. Even if you're high net worth, it's still going to be a kick to the teeth and to the net worth if you need a long-term care event, because we don't know it's $0 or $2 million. So, kudos to you for really implementing it properly within the practice. I think more advisors should take that page out of your book and what we are preaching regarding it, because it becomes such a critical part of the holistic planning approach that we talk about, right? Can't just be one thing only.
Yeah, and it's a risk that's not necessary. There's tools out there to, you're not, like you say in the seminars, right? You're moving money from the left pocket to the right pocket. You still have that asset. You're not losing the asset, but now you're protecting your family and your nest egg and just the peace of mind for your loved ones and your kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our good friend, Brian Knott, long-term care expert that we've had on the podcast before, says you're not spending this asset. The asset is still yours. You're self-insuring either way, because if I move it into one of these hybrid plans, you're still self-insuring. You're using your money first. Then you're going to tap into the insurance company. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. All right. Can we spend a few minutes and then we'll wrap up here with, tell me about your practice, kind of org chart conversation.
Sure.
Who does what? How's it comprised today? And then also time management.
Yeah, so I think what changed our practice, before I get into that, is the book Who Not How. So if you have not read that, I really suggest that. And basically what ended up happening in our practice is we started growing really quickly. I mean, being holistic, and there's not a lot in our area that really focused on everything, we grew very quickly on that. So as far as our practice at this point, right now we have 2 new business processors, a marketing coordinator. We have a Medicare. My mom runs the Medicare. My dad likes to present as well. And then we had a junior advisor. We're growing another junior advisor right now because our goal is to scale. So once I started reading that book, Who Not How, it's basically not how do I do more, who can I hire to do more? We've all heard it, like what do you make hourly? Should you be doing this or that? Like, probably not. You should focus on what you're good at. So now I'm kind of addicted to hiring just so I can focus on what I'm good at. And then we continue to bring in admin, and now we just hired a receptionist as well. So
it's who do I need within the organization in order for us to be able to do more?
Correct.
Yeah.
Not how do I do more, because I think a lot of advisors get in their own way. Well, I don't want to spend the money. I can do that. Yeah, but what is that
seemingly
taken away
obvious?
from?
I just wanted to make sure I distinguish that, and I think we're in any entrepreneur building a business. Doesn't matter what it is. We do wear all the hats.
Yep.
And we continue to wear all the hats, but we're really good at 1 or 2 or maybe 3 things, and usually that's the sales or the marketing development side of the business. That's how I ultimately gain some beginning level of success.
Correct.
I'm now at a sustainable point in my career. We then are going to pour fuel on the fire of, we start seeing this pretty rapid growth if I'm doing the right things. And before you started to hire all these people, describe what you were going through and how you were feeling as when I say the head of the organization, it is you and your father who were the leaders of the organization, but you were going so fast and furious. What did that, can you elaborate a little bit, share some of that?
Yeah, I mean, first, my wife tells me I'm addicted to chaos, and I think she's right. But the chaos became too much, where, we were working 6 days a week because people can't see us on Friday or whatever day. So
evenings.
Yeah, in evenings. So Saturdays became a constant because we wanted to be available to everyone. And we were so afraid to shut that down. I was like, well, then we might not see these people, and we have to see Saturdays. And then now I have 3 kids, so it's just not an option between soccer and everything. But when we first started, it was just seminar after seminar, client after client. We were, booked 7 appointments a day, and then we'd finish everything up, and then I had a pile of apps on my desk. I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to get to that. So finally,
Right.
my dad was a little nervous about hiring because he's gone down that. And I was like, look, we have to just stop then until we get through all of these things, and I know you don't want to stop. So then that's where we first started trial and error trying to hire people, and that was new for me. You know, I didn't have experience hiring. So we got our first admin, that one didn't work out. Second admin, that one didn't work out. Third one was awesome, been with us for 7 years, and really, believe it or not, as an advisor, I'm not the most organized person. I think a lot of us are like that, right? So she came in and started building our operations and then helping us on our CRM. We switched to Red
Guys,
Tail.
this is an absolute mess. We got to figure this out here.
Yeah, absolutely. So she started helping us out and building a manual, everything that we do, how the CRM works. So we hired her, and then we started picking up speed, and then got securities in 2017. I got my 65.
Yeah.
So that was a whole nother
World.
hurdle and world. But
Yeah.
I quickly really enjoyed building that side of the business because then I was really, my goal was always to be an actual financial planner, retirement planner. And if I was just doing annuities and life insurance,
You're just
Not-
selling product.
yeah, and I'm not knocking those guys, but it's hard to be transformational if you're only doing transactions.
Right.
And I wanted to really be able to focus in on that holistic side. So the chaos ensued, hired more people, and started to really build the team. We need another admin. All right, now we need someone to do the marketing coordinating because I don't want to have to call the seminar venues and figure out the dates and the times and the minimums and all of that. So, and someone to work with the mail house. So now we have a marketing coordinator. Now we have 2 admin, and it continued to build and,
That's
take
great.
shape. Yep. And then in 2020, we had to get creative, right, with COVID, and we were doing outside events and we were trying anything we could. But at that point, after going through 2020 and then 2022, then we jumped into let's become an RIA. Let's make sure we're doing the absolute best we can for our clients. So we decided to embark on the RIA journey back in 2022, and that's been completed. And now we're just hiring more. And I think at this point, which no one really helped me in the beginning on this, but I was growing too fast and I was having a problem scaling. And I needed more mentorship. So I got more mentorship, from you guys and business coaches. Like, okay, how do we successfully build with making sure that we're still being fiduciaries and abiding all of our clients' needs and,
Right.
and not slipping on that. So that's currently where we sit now. And now it's okay. We're able to pause, read different. The book Traction is a great book. Kind of teaches you how to scale and run a company. So
Right.
I'm heavily involved in that right now. And now it's okay. We built something really amazing here. I love what I do, and I could be at the office all day. But again, I have 6-year-old, 3-year-old, 1-year-old. So now it's trying to buy time back rather than bring more clients in. And I think that's the position I'm currently in, is how do I get more of my time and still be able to have a successful practice and, continue to build other advisors up. So that's where we started at seminars. I don't know if this is ever going to work, and then pushed, long-term care, Medicare, now estate planning. Now I have
Investments.
Yeah, investments.
Yep.
And then we have relationships with different, CPAs and enrolled agents. So really being a boutique firm to the point now where we're finally establishing minimums. And that always used to scare me. Like, I don't know if we can have a minimum. Like, I got to work with everyone. But the way you built your book is not what you want to continue to do.
Right.
You have to establish those minimums. Your time is very valuable. And
More is not always better.
no,
Yeah.
it's not. And if you really want to serve your clients, you can't just
Yeah.
bring on everyone. Nor do people at seminars. I get that question now as we work with higher net worth individuals. What's your minimum? Do you guys work with everyone? Because they're asking, how much of your time am I going to have, or am I competing with everyone else? So,
Right.
that was just a change in thinking.
That's
I
a
was
big
like,
mind
okay.
shift.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I was
for,
like,
for the
wow.
client too,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So there's 4 stages to every advisor's practice. First is, what would you guess? It's S. It's an S word.
Sales.
Survival.
So, okay.
Right? Sales and survival.
Yeah.
I take on whatever lives,
Pretty much
breathes,
the same
walks,
thing.
will sign the paper.
Yep.
Then you get to a point where you're sustainable. All right, I've survived, and that's usually around 3 years, let's just say. 36 months, I've figured it out. I've got enough revenue and clients coming in. I'm going to be in this business. Then you get to the level of significance, which is where you are now at. and you came to a very important crossroads in your firm of we can continue to be really good income producers, or are we going to pivot to actually build a business? And you're building a business, and you expressed very well some of the challenges, things you needed to learn, decisions you needed to make to get to where you are today, and continuing to develop that. Last but not least is the phase of like legacy. What do I want to leave behind in my wake? What is that? What should that look like? What should that feel like? And there's multiple answers for that. Pass it on to the next generation, which is in the case of your father. Do I want to sell the practice? Do I want to become a spokesperson to the industry in some capacity? What does that look like? And that, we all hope that we one day have that luxury to get to that point. But you're well on your way. So thank you for coming in today. Sharing your insights. That was very informative and enlightening. We really, really appreciate it. Anything you want to add, Nick?
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
like I said, well overdue. It's been since 2016 we've been working together. Haven't had you on the podcast yet. So,
well, thanks for having me, and I appreciate all your guys' help and being those mentors and teaching me what I don't know. Right, you got to keep an open mind in this business and just be always learning, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Always trying to pick something new and see how can you help your clients, right? Because there's so many stages of retirement, and we can get into accumulation, distribution, preservation, but I think just being well-rounded and, having a team like you guys and, just keeping that open mind and building to our practice is what's helped us get to where we're at.
So, wait, I forgot to ask one last thing. What have you learned about time management?
Time management.
How do you handle it today?
Yeah, and I think we were talking about that a bit earlier. I really have started to train my clients not to call me, right? I'm very much so, not to sound arrogant or anything like that, but I'm in meetings all day. So it's almost like you're not going to call your doctor and ask them to schedule an appointment. And I think that's been very helpful. Now my clients handle my schedule. If you're my friend, if you're my cousin, if you're anyone, you still have to follow the same rules and go through my office staff. They control my scheduling, so I'm not sitting there worried, oh, now I got to move this. Can I get them in here? And I'll tell you what, time management as far as having someone else follow your calendar and then having a phone system where they can call in, get to the right department at our office. And then I think the other thing is just having someone be able to start para-planning for you. That's really helped in my time management. So scheduling, para-planning, really protecting my schedule so I can focus on what I need to do has been a big help for us.
And what about personally? What have you gained back, or how do you manage what Travis wants and needs as a husband, father, and your personal interests?
Yeah, something we did a long time ago, well, a couple of years ago, is Mondays I do not see clients. Mondays to work on the business, not in the business. Fridays I now am done by 2:00, and you will not find me there on a Saturday or Sunday. So I really bulk up, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are my working hard. And then Mondays, taking meetings with, you guys or whoever it is to improve the business. So that's something that's been really big.
And these were learned habits over the last couple years for you of it had to be done or you were not going to survive.
Yeah. And I think it's a hard transition because you're so scared. Well, if I'm not available every day, they're not going to see me and I'm going to lose that client. That is not the case. They actually like the fact that I'm spending time with my kids, right? I'm putting my kids first.
You're not a robot.
Right? Yep. And now I have a picture in my conference room of all my children, my dog, everything. So people remember I am a person. I do have a life. I got soccer on Saturdays. I got swim on Sundays. We got cheer camp. So I've really made that a priority. So, what good is being successful if I can't hang out with my family, the ones that are really going to be there for me, right? My clients are great, but I need to make that time. And I had to train my dad on that. That guy will still work on Saturdays. Right. He's like, well, I got nothing else to do. I'm like, you watch my kids. That's what you could do. But that's something
that's
that I've
what
learned.
I mean, he's a hustler, right? He's worked really, really hard. He loves what he does. He just loves that element of our profession, the grind.
The problem is with that is he's wants
been
to
an
grind.
Animal.
He has been, but he'll bottleneck me, right? Because I'm the one in the back
They
row.
trap you. They'll trap you.
That's the conversation we have. Is like, look, I know you want to keep going, but you're bottlenecking me, and
Don't
need to live to
compromise.
see 40. Yeah, I'm
Don't
39. I got to make it there. So
Like you said, the people that matter most to you in your life, it's your wife, your kids, and you.
Yep.
Right? What do I need?
and
So that I could be the best that version of me in whatever form.
Well,
You know,
I think
otherwise, that sacrifices.
And I think I've listened to your podcasts you guys have done some great podcasts even on health and I've listened to those ones, and I think you guys have helped influence me to get in there 5:30 in the morning, get your workout in, because you're not going to do it when you're off. I got to go hang out with the kids and spend time with them. So that's kind of helped me. I think that's really helped me do better in my business life, because now I feel good in the morning. I got a workout in or whatever it is I'm up to, and I think that's important, and that's what I do for myself, is just try to get the workout in so I can kind of come into the day a little calmer without the chaos and burn some out there. So, I mean, you guys
awesome.
have helped with that for sure.
Excellent.
That's great.
Well, thank you for coming in again.
Yep,
Cheers.
thanks for having me.
Until next time.
Let's do it.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.